Alright, it's your boy RantNRavinFection, and today's topic we're going to talk about fighting games, in particular fighting game bosses. These are the final fights, the final characters that you have to fight against in fighting games. And so, fighting games tend to have very prominent bosses, very high-profile, epic boss fights because it is a one-on-one experience, and you fight through different varieties of fighters throughout the arcade mode or the story mode or whatever, the campaign mode, and after you kick the crap out of about 8 to 10 different characters that you have to face, before the fucking boss, you finally get to the final boss, the final fucking character, the big fucking battle. And sometimes these bosses can be pretty lame. And we're going to look at some of the crappiest bosses and some of the best bosses as well, some of the most memorable ones. Now let's start it off with the best bosses in fighting game history. Of course, where do we start if we don't mention this guy, Goro from the Mortal Kombat game. Actually, this guy came out in the first Mortal Kombat, and legendary character. I mean, I think that Goro was truly the first big boss. He was the first big boss battle. What's funny about Goro was that, he wasn't even the final boss. It was actually Shang Tsung, the fucking evil sorcerer. But because Goro was a large fucking, he had like 4 arms. He was like light brown, tanned. He had a ponytail, and he was incredibly ugly. And so we've never really seen anything like Goro before. He was just this big monster, this fucking freak. And he stood out like crazy. He was really he was really the prominent big boss of fighting games. He was very influential, and in later games, really they tried to recreate the magic of Goro. They tried to recreate the it factor that Goro had, with characters like Kentaro and even Motaro and Shiva, these different spin-off characters. But Goro was really the first of his kind. He was like half human, half dragon. He was like 5,000 years old or something like that. The character model for Goro wasn't even a human being. For the rest of the other characters like Sonya Blade and Johnny Cage and Liu Kang, they were all real-life people that were captured on film. And then those images were used to create the video game sprites. But in Goro's case, because he was so large and he just looked so unique, his character design was different. His character model was actually literally a clay model. It was made out of clay, claymation or whatever. So Goro would be up there, and I think to this day Goro remains the most prominent, most important Mortal Kombat boss in history. Let's look at some other ones. Of course, you got this, Street Fighter, A.B.Z, aka he was actually called Vega in Japan. A.B.Z, he made his residence in Thailand, and he was like this dictator, this corrupt, evil dictator who was basically, if you look at characters, real life characters like Adolf Hitler or Mussolini, he was kind of like that. He was that dictator, that evil, empirical, that conqueror, wannabe kind of character. And he was pure evil. He was an interesting boss at first, because in the first in Street Fighter 2 he was actually, he was smaller. He was significantly skinnier, and he was a smaller sprite. He wasn't the big bulky character that he was in the later games like Alpha, where they really bulked him up and they slowed him down. He was pretty fucking fast. He had impressive speed. He had that fucking spear, that psycho attack. You know what I mean? Psycho screw. And A.B.Z, I like him when I like that version better. I like the fact that he was faster, and he was very quick, and he could attack you like out of nowhere, and he did a lot of damage by just totally decimating his opponents. I like that when before the fight began, you could hear his epic theme music. What an amazing theme music, level stage music. That those fucking bells that would chime in, that dun, dun, and then he had the fucking cape, and then he would take it off, and then he would just get ready to fucking fight you. That was fucking hype. That is how you do a fucking boss, okay? That is an amazing fucking boss. And that's probably his best fucking version. I think that his bigger version in the alpha games, they really kind of screwed him up, They slowed him down and they made him bigger. And I'm just getting sick and tired of this bigger is better mentality. Like, all the fucking fighting game, fucking companies think that just because you have a fucking 8-foot tall boss, weighs about 450 pounds, doesn't mean any fucking thing, because you're gonna have to defeat that son of a bitch anyway. Okay, yeah, they're more physically intimidating, but who gives a fucking shit? Okay, whatever happened to speed? Whatever happened to a great fucking fight, a great fucking battle, an exciting fucking fight against M. Bison? Okay? It was actually fun fighting against M. Bison, because he was so fucking tough. He was so fucking fast. Jesus fucking Christ, man. But, yeah, I mean, that's how it goes. You gotta look at guys like Heihachi Mishima. Let's look at Tekken. Heihachi Mishima. This guy was he was really the man behind the Mishima Zaibatsu Empire, and he was the father of Kazuya Mishima, and the grandfather of Jin Kazama, which these three are basically the main family, the main lineage behind the fucking Tekken storyline. The whole Tekken storyline revolves around them. I mean, they're the only ones who fucking matter in the actual story. And the thing with Heihachi is that, he was old. Yeah, he was a geriatric looking guy, but he was fucking badass. Yeah, he was incredibly fucking muscular. He had fucking bone-crushing moves. Every time he would do his, backbreaker attacks, and it seemed like he was really crushing the bones of his opponents whenever he would perform those fucking throws, especially that jumping power bomb that he does, which is absolutely, once you get caught in that fucking power bomb, it's like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like, you're gonna take a lot of fucking damage, and, he's actually the only Tekken boss to ever appear twice in a fucking fighting game, in the Tekken fighting game, as the fucking final boss. He appeared initially in the first Tekken. He was the boss in the first Tekken, and then he ended up getting defeated by Kazuya, and then he was also the boss in Tekken 4. Now, that should tell you how prominent this guy is, how important he is to the image of Tekken. How this guy is like the iconic Tekken character. When you think of when you think of Tekken, you think of Heihachi Mishima. The old guy with the big walrus mustache and the spiky balding hair, to the sides. Alright, so those are some of the best fucking bosses. I would like to talk about some of the worst bosses, but it looks like we're not going to have a lot of time. So stay tuned. In the next video, we're going to talk about some of the worst fighting game bosses of all time. So